We have no one to co-opt, and we have one short. Councillor Ewan is an apology. Confirmation of the minutes. Would somebody like to move that we agree to the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, the lady at the dog park. I'll put that. All those in favour. Oh, anyone against? No one against. I'll declare that carried. Supplementary items. I don't think we have any. Indications of cuneiform and conflicts of interest. Item 4. None. No transfer of agenda items, I don't think. So we'll move on to 6, which is reports, and 6.1 is a clothing and textile recycling pilot initiative.
Happy to move it, Chair. Looks really interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Lord Mayor. Everyone's had a chance to read the agenda item, or would Mr. Holmes like to give us just a brief overview? Since we haven't got a lot on the agenda, you can take a few more minutes if you want to give us a brief
perhaps
outline.
I can introduce it if you like, Chairman, and we can call on Mr. Holmes. Essentially, as you say, the report sums it up. It is a pilot. This is an opportunity to help dispose of surplus clothing in a way that avoids it going to landfill. The ask of council is relatively small. It's the accommodation of a bin at McRoby's, possibly at the Resource Recovery Centre, and as the report indicates, other locations. To ensure that the pilot works well and in conjunction with charities, and that'll be one of the things that we're evaluating. But we see it as quite an exciting opportunity just to give folk an alternative disposal point when they get to McRoby's and they've got clothing in their waste. I'm not sure if Mr. Holmes wants to add anything further.
No, there's nothing more particularly to add other than, I guess, the hope is that this pilot will help, I guess, bring other organisations into hosting similar facilities around the city.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully this will kickstart a bit of a thing that organisations are happy to host a box. That'd be great. Thanks, Mr. Holmes. Can I just inquire? I understand there's around over 400 tonnes of textiles that end up in landfill every year. Is that in the ballpark?
Yeah, that's a ballpark. It's very hard to get an exact number with landfill auditing. It's always a very inaccurate science. But yeah, we estimate it's around 400 tonnes of clothing items go into the landfill each year. I mean, the charities themselves were bringing through about 800 tonnes in total, and a significant proportion of their waste was clothes. So yeah, and
yep.
So Jeff, if they're bringing in 800 tonnes and it's mainly clothes, and that's just the charities, wouldn't it be larger than 400 tonnes a year?
Yeah, it possibly is, but as I said, we didn't want to overestimate this with the crowd that are looking at bringing this to Hobart. So look, and we haven't gone through and sat down with each charity and gone, right, okay, let's weigh your load and let's count the clothes and let's say, I mean, that's just an anecdotal observation that a lot of their products is clothes. It's likely more than 400, but never wanted to overestimate the amount to the crowd that wanted to come.
So I think, Chair, just a question. So this is for receiving and noting. Has it started, or is it just to implement it when it comes along? And is there any real financial costs associated with this?
So, Deputy, it is to receive and note, and it's Mr. Holmes, depending on this evening's decision, and obviously if you had objections with it, we wouldn't proceed, but providing everyone's happy, Mr. Holmes will then swing into action to make it happen. It is a pilot, and I think what we'd be doing is as I say, putting the bin at McRoby's, seeing how well that works, perhaps encouraging our friends at the tip shop to have another, and then really working with the initiative to see whether other bins could be appropriate. In terms of direct cost, though, Deputy, there are none.
All right. Okay.
Sorry, can I just ask, just to double check on this? I know it's in the report, but just to hear it from the expert's mouth. Just about, I mean, you're confident that this group aren't just taking it to a Malaysian landfill, that they really do use it all in a different way?
Yeah, I'm confident in that. I mean, that they operate in every state other than Tasmania and in the Northern Territory, and so they're wanting to become a truly national service provider. So yeah, we're confident that they're well established. They've got the processes in place, and that it'll be handled appropriately, and the clothing will make its way to the people in need in third world countries, and any excess will be dealt with through either recycled textiles or waste to energy facilities.
And Lord Mayor, just to add to that, just as we are doing a lot of work with our recycling processor to understand exactly where the material goes, a part of this pilot, I'd like to see some reports back from those operating it to give us some indication of how much they collect from us and where it does end up. And so we'd be looking at some of that reporting opportunity to get a good feel for it as well. So that's part of the pilot, really.
Okay.
Yep.
And they will have a facility here in the future as well, so they'll be able to sort stuff in Tasmania, hopefully for reuse here before it heads to the mainland and then the ultimate destination. If there's no further comments, I'll put the Lord Mayor's recommendation, and that is that we the report be received and noted. That we read the whole thing. The city participates in a clothing and textile recycling pilot initiative with CSR Group. Be received and noted. So any dissent to that? No? Okay, carried unanimously. Item 6.2 is the local area mobility plan. That's pretty straightforward as well, I think, from the report, but I will invite either the acting director or Ms. Louise Carter to give us an introduction.
I might hand this one directly to Dr. Carter.
Yep. Louisa.
Hello, everyone. This is a very exciting piece of work and quite a usual piece of work in cities to look at, specific catchments in a detailed way and to identify a number of projects. We call it indicatively 21 projects, could be 50, could be 10. And that those projects are things that are focused on active and healthy and well-being outcomes in the Hobart transport catchments. We've actually, in order to do this work, divided the city into 10 catchments, some of which are not within the City of Hobart's remit, such as the Port Macquarie Point. But the rest of those include 2 catchments, which are essentially major parks, the Queen's Domain and Wellington Park. At the moment, we'd like to focus on the very real needs of the, urbanised part of the city and to progress quickly through, in the next 2 or 3 years to identify the kinds of projects that we can invest in the suburbs. The committee might be aware that, when we were very keen to be the happy recipients of an increased, grant funding out of the Vulnerable Road User and the Black Spot program last year, taking our contribution to the council's, works in the suburbs, minor works in the suburbs, from 1 million a year with co-contributions to 4 million a year. Without any co-contributions and with a lot of internal, funding in there for project management and things that we need. So in terms of the local area mobility plans, you may recall, in the 70s and 80s that transport planners used to talk about local area traffic management, LATM. Well, this is the 30, 40 year later Revolve version, which is about balanced investments in the city, understanding where there's issues where local issues will conflict with strategic links issues, and trying to get the best possible and safest outcomes in the city.
All right. Yep. Is there any questions? Dr. Carter? Helen, I can hardly see you there. Could you go and stand under a lamp?
I am. I
You
am
are,
standing
okay.
under. Yeah.
Right.
Look, no, I'm pleased to see this. I'm happy to move it. Have we got any priorities with the work?
We have,
well, yeah, but more specifically around particular areas rather than just those built up areas.
yes, it's a very good question, Deputy Lord Mayor. Through you, Chair, we have actually undertaken a multi-criteria assessment for how we would approach the different parts of the city, the different catchments, and how they should be ordered and sequenced. And the criteria that we applied were things like numbers of complaints on council systems, whether we needed to be cognizant of a major adjoining project, whether that was councils or the states, and so that we needed to perhaps wait on certain parts of the city. So there were about economic return, a focus on tourism and destination planning. So I think we had about 4 or 5 criteria, and we have ranked those and submitted those to the director, and I believe that they were indicatively accepted, but that's something that we can also discuss with the committee. At the moment, we're proposing to start in the north part of the city. And of course, the Central Hobart Precinct Plan is one of the catchments, and we're already undertaking that.
Thanks.
Okay, any further?
Oh, can I just ask, with the vulnerable road user money that's come in, I mean, how much of that will we, I'm sure you've circulated the projects before, but how much of that do you think is already complementary to this, the kind of things that will be happening, that, this process will identify?
That's a good question, Lord Mayor. I think these projects are quite similar if you talk about the minor projects, but sometimes when you get into studying a catchment, you realise that, for example, we might need a new cycle link, a secondary cycle link, and where we might have been, planning for things on the major urban arterial, we might also, in a project like this, look at other routes that might be safer or more suitable. So it is somewhere between doing that strategic and local planning and identifying projects that we can get after with the funding. So they're very similar, but for example, a bridge crossing over a rivulet, that wouldn't qualify under those programs, but it might be a very desirable project.
Okay. And just on the, did I hear that there's a third round of the VRUs coming up as well?
We did have 3 rounds in this year. And I will commend my team for their performance in dragging in those dollars for council. On occasion, we only had 5 or 6 days to pull that together.
So is there another one coming, or is that it?
We haven't heard of the next one other than the usual rounds. So I think Black Spot is about May or June, and then usually Vulnerable Road User is October, November.
Okay. And round 3, have we heard on those projects, or have we only just submitted?
We have submitted them. I believe that they're an assessment, and that we can we've been advised that we will be able to know those results shortly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Well, if there's no further comments, Councillor Burnett in the dark there moved the motion. So if there's no dissent, I'll declare. Okay, Councillor Alderman Barakis.
I'm dissenting. I've got nothing to add. I'm just registering my vote.
You're dissenting. Okay. All right. So we'll just go around the room just to make sure everything's clear. Lord Mayor, how do you vote?
In favour.
Councillor Burnett, how do you vote?
In favour.
And Alderman Barakis, how do you vote?
Against, Chair.
And I'll vote in favour. So that's carried 3 votes to 1, that the report titled Local Area Mobility Plan dated 21st of May 2021 be received and noted for information. Okay. We'll move on to committee action status reports. 7.1 committee action status report. Any comments on that?
So moved, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Burnett, any discussion? No discussion. Any dissent? I'll declare that carried. Item 8 is questions without notice. Does anybody have a question?
Yes, Chair. I have a couple of questions, and I've kind of forewarned the director about them, and I've got them in writing as well. But I will read them
Okay.
out.
Lord Mayor, your camera's gone off, so technically you're not.
Oh, that's a shame because I'm actually just trying to read my questions. Let me see why that's happening. So I'm here, but I was trying to read my question. Is that off now?
Yeah, it's off.
Oh, bother.
Same thing happened to me, Lord Mayor. If you're on your phone, as soon as you tab onto something else, it switches.
Can I?
Yeah,
how do I do that?
Yeah, just memorize the question and come back.
Okay, I'll try and remember the first one.
Yeah,
I've got the.
I was going to assist Lord Mayor, even if we get just the high level.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll just. The first one, and I will come back and then I'll go back to my list actually. The first one is just, can we get an update on, I think Alderman Barakis raised a question or a motion or something around trialling a scramble crossing. Can we, whether that's been considered any further, whether it's on the list but might be a little while away because it's complicated. That was the first question.
So, Lord Mayor, we'll take that on notice and be something that Dr. Carter and Mr. Noy will no doubt respond to.
Okay. And this is the next one. Given the very large amount of cardboard that appears to be going into landfill, and this is anecdotal from my own observations up there, but it's been consistent. Is there any way that we could better publicise or move the cardboard recycling bins, which are actually not visible from when people pull up to the landfill floor? So I think they don't know that it's there. So that's my other question.
Lord Mayor, very happy to take that one on notice, and perhaps we'll include in that, as well as directly answering your question, some information on the volumes of cardboard that is going through Macrobies as well. So we'll absolutely come back to you on that one.
Thank you. Yeah, as I said, it was anecdotal, but the couple of times I've noticed it, it's quite concerning given there is a facility just around the corner for people. The other one was just around, given that I'm coming back. Given that walking and running are the most popular recreational activities in Australia, and I think right around Australia according to the census and things, what would be the practical issues and I guess cost impact of actually having some of our sporting field lights on after dark during winter to make particularly women have contacted me about not feeling safe but wanting the opportunity to run sort of at 5 o'clock in winter up at the Domain. So, like, what would be the practical implications if we were to do that in a couple of sporting fields, leave lights on, even though there's no actual soccer teams or football teams there, but just runners and walkers and others?
Look, thanks, Lord Mayor. Probably one for the Parks Committee, but can certainly take it on notice. Just for your benefit, at present, we use the lights as a form of control in terms of utilisation of the sports field. So if we have a sports field booking, we have the lights on to align with that booking. In providing a response to you, as I understand it, perhaps the question is, can we have a lower level of lighting available that makes it safe for some usage of the oval without necessarily encouraging more team-based sport that might be there without a booking. So we'll come back to you with some advice. On
Okay. Yeah, and I understand it's a more parks thing, but it's a bit of crossover because it's about lighting and energy, and parks got cancelled. So I just wanted to, they're all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lord Mayor. Any other questions? No? Okay. All right, well, let's move over to the closed. Could I have someone move a motion that we go into closed? Thank you, Alderman Barakis. No dissent to going to the closed.